episode 19. And the great thing about episode 19 is today we're going to have Elliotte on with us again. He's a regular contributor. JR had to take last week off. We'll get back in the saddle with him this week. But Gio will be back. We'll be, Thanksgiving kind of threw a wrinkle in things and holiday schedule, so we kind of got off track there. But we were about to just have Elliotte pop on our call here, and Alain Vigneault, also known as Gant, was fired by the Philadelphia Flyers. So we just put a little bit of a delay in that in his time getting on with this, Riv. But
yeah, the
Gant. Well,
stuff's happening right now.
Well, he said last week on the episode with us, he said, what I'm curious to know is what's going to happen in Philadelphia. But Vancouver cleaned house yesterday. Benning's out.
And Travis Green, head
Travis
coach.
Green's out. They didn't get rid of assistants, right?
They got rid of one of the assistant GMs, which I don't know his name.
Okay. And then, so Elliotte's about to pop on with us, and he says, hang tight. We have some news about Vigneault. So a lot going on in the NHL. And then on top of that, I'll let you comment on this quickly. An awesome response from episode 18 with our Sabres Roundtable with Mike Harrington and Paul Hamilton.
Yes. Love them or hate them, those guys. They speak the truth. They're guys that are there each and every day watching the team. They're more dialed into that team than anyone here in Buffalo. And listen, they give their opinions, and sometimes it's listen. I couldn't stand Mike Harrington when I was playing here for the Sabres, and Paul Hamilton. These guys are hard. They tell the truth, and sometimes as a player you just don't want to hear that. But now that I'm past that point, now that I look at the face value of what's going on with the hockey team, don't know what's going on in the dressing room. Mike Harrington, Paul Hamilton do not know what's going on the inner workings of that team, but they are as close to that team as anyone. And I'm going to tell you this, there has been a lot of response with that episode.
They have a good feel of the pulse, though. I feel like, there are always a couple media members in each town that have a little bit better understanding of what's going on than maybe they lead on, right? And these guys definitely know. They know what's going on. They hear things. They're around the team. You can always sense an attitude. If you're in the media and you've been around long enough, you can sense which players are genuine, which ones aren't, which ones are going to be hard to deal with, and but as long as there's like that mutual respect, right? But
it's hard to have mutual respect. It really is, as a player.
Well, then I was just going to ask you that. Like, is it hard?
Because you don't want things written, negatively about you. Like that's the last thing you want to hear. It adds more pressure to you. That pressure, deep down inside in your core, you try and say to yourself, it's not going to bother me. I'm going to stay away from even reading the media news, or, I don't know how, as a young professional athlete in today's society, that you can get away from it. I don't see how you can.
The only way is to not have social media at all and not read the paper.
To not have a phone.
Like back when we played, it was, and much before that, obviously, not just in our time, but before that and shortly after, but definitely before our time, it was don't read the paper. Don't watch the highlights. But again, don't watch the news, things like that. So it was easy to escape. It's not easy for athletes to escape nowadays. Not. Like I almost feel like you have to understand that criticism and all of those possibilities of social media criticism and donkeys commenting is just part of the reality of sports these days.
Yep. You got to have real thick skin. I'll tell you that. That's the first thing. You have to understand that your career in what sport you play is going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be an up and down one. And you've never seen a guy that's taken his career and just had a trajectory that is going up and everything is, like you're riding a unicorn into the clouds. And, you're going to have tough days. You're going to have tough weeks and tough months. And even for that matter, you're probably going to have tough years if you play your sport long enough. And you really have to have thick skin. You have to let things roll off your back, because there's going to be a lot of negativity out there. Even when things are going well, there's always reporters that their job is to write negativity. That's just their job. It's like their job is not just to cover the sport. It's to get dirt. That is their niche in how they write. And we've all seen those guys. We've all been around those guys. It's not like you can't talk to them, because you're obligated as a professional athlete in your job to speak to these guys.
No, mandated.
Better
Which
word.
I think is ridiculous too, by the way. I don't know if that's a conversation another. I think the fact that we force these players to talk after every game, and like, just take, I hate dwelling, but just take Jack Eichel, for example. Like, you and I, everybody has, criticized his body language and stuff in interviews, but I'm just like, well, you look at the 6 years that he's here, like how many times could he really have positivity in a post-game press conference? So I just ask myself, without making this about Jack and his time in Buffalo, why do we force this upon the players to stand at the podium every single night? And granted, it's a different player.
But it's not. It's not a different player. How many times did you go to Jack Eichel in the last 6 years? Like the media wants to talk
so
to Jack
much
Eichel
that
and Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart basically wore this face. He'd go into the meeting, okay? He's dealing with the media. They all come in. Guess what? Guess what he's got to talk about? He's got to talk about the same thing. It's like Groundhog Day. Didn't play well enough. We didn't work hard enough, made too many mistakes, blah, blah, blah. It's always negative. And over years and years and years, it can wear on you. Jack, in particular, wore it right on his face. And it was the worst thing for a professional athlete to do, is wear your anger and pain on your face. I hate to say it, but someone should have taken that young man aside and said, I don't care how pissed off you are. I don't care how upset you are. You have to have a stone face. Let it out. But, the rolling of the eyes and the head nods and looking up, as he's speaking to the media, he's looking up at the ceiling at times, like the way you could tell how irritated and upset he was. And it's a long time. It was a long time. I feel bad for Jack. I feel bad for Sam Reinhart.
You almost wonder if the disc problem in his neck came from all the I just hurt my neck on that too, by the way, right there. I'm not joking. That's karma. Biting you right in the neck. Yeah, so I didn't want to make it too much about that. Tell me about Gant before Elliotte comes on here. Well, like, the Flyers fire Vigneault. A lot of our listeners know us from our past show, but there are a lot of new listeners. So Alain Vigneault, hold on a sec here. Alain Vigneault was let go today, and we're just welcoming in Elliotte Friedman here, and he's going to come right in. What's happening?
What makes you think that you can just let him on like that? We were having an unbelievable discussion, Petey.
What was it about?
You.
Don't tell me. It's just better if I don't know.
It really was. It was about, it wasn't. No. So you gave us the news this morning about Alain Vigneault being let go.
Mm-hmm.
Craig played for him. And do you know what Alain Vigneault's nickname is? At
No,
least
what
when
is it?
Craig played for it behind his back. Do you know what his nickname was?
No, I certainly don't know that.
Go ahead.
What
Andy.
was it?
We called him Gant.
Gant?
Gant.
Which is short for what, Elliot? What is Gant short for? In what word would players want to call their coach Gant? One word. Go
You
ahead.
got me on this one.
A little arrogant.
Oh, I see. Okay, arrogant. Okay. I'll tell you a story. Kevin Bieksa told me a story once about Vigneault, and he said that he hated Vigneault when he first started playing for him, and Trevor Linden sat him down and said that you're going to find out he's going to be one of your best coaches that you're ever going to play for. And Bieksa said, "You've got to be kidding. Like, I can't believe that." And Bieksa said it was true. Now, I have a theory on this. My theory is that I'm not really convinced that Vigneault, like, I think he wanted to take more time when Philly offered him the job. Like, one of the places I believe that happened was when John Tortorella was fired in New York. I thought Vancouver was like totally the wrong match with him. And I don't think he should have gone to Vancouver. I think he should have taken the year off. But coaches want to coach, and he did, and it just didn't work. And I've kind of wondered the same thing about Vigneault and Philly. Was it really the right time for him? Was it the right move for him? But when someone gives you that kind of a big contract, it's
Exactly
tough to say no to.
25 for 5.
Tough to
That's
say
a
no
lot
to.
of money
Yeah.
to turn down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe his
So is he the only guy? Because I know that they have like the all-star coaching staff. Don't they have Mike Yeo there? Don't they have, I think, Michelle Therrien there? Are they staying? What are you hearing with them?
Therrien, I think, is out. I think Mike Yeo is coaching tonight.
well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Terrian's out. I mean, just that Mike Yeo would take over on the bench. It's almost like, didn't we see that?
Well, they have a game tonight, right? So you got to.
Yeah, but when they hired that coaching staff, that's what I was thinking. Like, well, you know who the next coach is going to be if this doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
What are the next changes there? I mean, it's got to be players.
Well, I think yes, but don't forget they also made a bunch of player moves last summer.
I know, but at what point do you
how's
start
Ristolainen doing right now?
You know,
I mean, at what point in time does this guy just say, "Let's go back to Finland and have some fun"?
Not when you're making $5.5 million a season. You don't do that, but you never know. Like it could be. I just think, honestly, I just think it. I think there's going to be big changes there in Philly. I mean, there already have been. I mean, they've made big trades. They just changed the coach. You know, maybe you have to do something even bigger. Although there really isn't much bigger than they've already done.
Well, who's the first player? Claude Giroux.
Well, first of all, Giroux has control over it, so there's that. But he doesn't have a contract for next year. He addressed it on Friday. He was asked about it, and he said, "Look, I'm not focused on that right now," which is exactly what the answer is you would expect. But anytime a star player like him and a cornerstone goes into his last season of a deal and there's no extension, don't you think you guys played, it's on everybody's mind, right?
That's all he's thinking about. So, yeah. You know, and I love Claude Giroux. He's one of my favorite players. I love Claude Giroux, but I just, you know, I love that, Elliot, when a player says, "Oh, it's, you know, I'm not really thinking about it right now," which means, no, I'm not talking to you guys about it, but it's on my mind nonstop. That's how I interpret that.
It's not like he's having a bad year either. He's got 19 points in 22 games. So, you know, he has had decline in his game for a number of years. That being said, at what point in time do you just need a fresh face, a fresh beginning? Claude Giroux's been there for a very, very long time. Sometimes things get stale. Is it the best thing for the team? Is it the best thing for even the player, for that matter? So it'll be interesting to watch what they do with some of these guys.
Well, look at it, Craig. They made a bunch of big changes last summer. They're not in the right direction. They're making a coaching change now. What was the thing we were all wondering about Philly after last year, goaltending? Their goalies have generally been really good. If we thought that their goaltending was going to be like this, that they were going to be in the position they're in, I don't know anybody who thought that. So you're probably sitting here and saying, oh my God, like you imagine what the next things we're going to have to do is.
So who's the GM right there right
Chuck
now?
Fletcher.
Chuck Fletcher. And
Yeah.
he's been there for what, five years?
I don't
Maybe.
think he's been there
Been
that
that long?
I don't think so. He was just hired a couple of years ago.
Maybe 3 years ago.
I'm just gonna tell you right
There's so
now.
much movement. There's been so much movement at general
3
manager.
years. 3 years. December 3rd, 2018. So we just passed 3 years this week.
Why do you ask, Craig?
Well,
You wondering about a timeline on him too?
listen, I mean, when you're going to move a coach and you have, you brought in Mike Yeo, who was a head coach in the National Hockey League for multiple teams. You have Alain Vigneault, who has been an extremely good coach in the National Hockey League. Michel Therrien has done great things and has coached on multiple NHL teams as a head coach. They had the coaching staff. They made moves this summer, bringing in Keith Yandel, guys like Rasmus Ristolainen, Cam Atkinson, who is a pretty darn good player in Columbus. They made some moves to try and make some changes. But where's the next step? Where's the next step? Are you looking to move to a guy that has a different philosophy, a different mindset in the direction of this team? That would be moving out Chuck Fletcher.
Yeah, I mean, and don't forget and don't forget also there's Paul Holmgren there, there's Bob Clark there, there's Comcast has its own views. Like there's a lot of in Philly, you've really got to manage around you because you're not only there, you've got the old school Flyers who are very involved. You've got the new Comcast corporate nature, which is very involved. Like there's a lot.
So is it an issue of power over there in Philly? Maybe beyond the coach and up top and beyond the GM? Is there?
No, I don't think that's the issue. I don't think Chuck Fletcher is being prevented from doing what he wants to do. But I do think that when you decide to make changes, there's a lot of opinions. And the days of a GM just not having to get clearance to do things, those are over. And there's just a lot of opinions there. That's it. I don't think he's being prevented from doing anything.
Late night for you, changes in Vancouver yesterday. Is that overdue?
I just think, did you guys see their game on Saturday night?
I didn't see it.
Against Pittsburgh?
Yeah. So the fans are booing. They're fire-banning. They're throwing jerseys on the ice. And that's all a factor. But what stood out to me is, and you guys can appreciate this because Kevin Bieksa and Kelly Rudy talked at length about it, and it was really fascinating to listen to them because only guys like you and them have this insight. The buzzer goes, they lose 4-1, and Travis Green just has this blank look on his face, like, I've got no more answers. And nobody moves on the bench. Eventually, one guy just stands up, and they all start to file out. And Kevin, who played there, and Kelly, who played almost 20 years, they're looking at each other and they're looking at that and they're saying, wow, like that's a powerful image. That's when, as a player, you got nothing. Like you're sitting here and you're like, what just happened? I got nothing. And they both said when you see that kind of reaction after a game, it's a crisis. Yeah. That's a team calling out for help.
That room must have been silent after the game. I mean, like we've all been like Craig, you've played through, Craig's borderline a coach killer. I mean, he played for like 15 coaches or something, Elliotte? So, but like you lose those games and you walk in the locker room and you're just silent and and you're just looking around and no one, even your captain or anyone, has anything to say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you say? I mean, when you have a year like this one, you run out of things to say. You meet with the media twice a day. If you're a coach, you meet with the media twice a day. Eventually there's nothing else to add, right? There's all the same questions, all the same answers. And, at least now there's fresh faces answering the questions.
I'll tell you.
Where is the issue on this team? Like, listen, I mean, your coach.
Well, they have the worst special teams in the league, like a historically bad penalty kill. And, the other thing, too, is it's never on one player, Craig, but Pettersson's lack of offense. Like, he's a distributor, right? When he's not playing well offensively, he's not just going down himself. As you know, there are players who are the creators and there's players who are the finishers. But you can't finish if there's no creation. So Pettersson's not only unfortunately taking himself down, he's taking other guys like Besser down with him.
I want to tell you just a quick story about a locker room I was in once where that happened. Like, we were just empty, and it involves Jason Bottrell. I was playing in the minors. It was my second year, and we were having a terrible streak, obviously. And I think Honeyworth and John Cristiano had just kind of hit a wall with coming in with the same repetitive story and the same message, right? Like, we had guys up in Buffalo. We had guys down with injury. So my point is we just lost a bunch of games and we were just empty. And we were in the room and we were silent. No one had taken their equipment off yet. We're all waiting for the coach to come in, right? Because you're at a point where you're like, well, you don't want to look eager to get undressed.
Yeah.
So you're sitting in your gear, just waiting to get torn apart because you don't want to be the guy that looks like, hey, I got shit to do. You know what I mean? Like, I got to go for beers. My girlfriend's waiting for me, whatever. You're like, see what the coach says. So we're waiting. And it's like, it's got to be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't want to say 5 or 10, but it was a few minutes and it was awkward silence. And all of a sudden, Bottrell, he stands up. Now, his nickname was the General. I didn't play with him when his nickname was the General, but this is what makes Bottrell, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He stands up and he walks towards the coach's office, and he's just yelling down the corridor, "Is no one going to come and talk to the team? No one has anything to say? After a game like that, you have nothing to say? It's bullshit." Right? And he's just like, he wanted Cunny to come in and shred us because we deserved it. And then I think all of a sudden Cunny just kind of comes like walking down. Yeah, it was very interesting. I mean, I'm 21 years old and Bottrell's won World Juniors, NCAA. He's won a Calder Cup. He's there to be a leader. He's got to be 28 at the time, 27. Like, he'd had cups of coffee in the NHL, but my God, like, he was known as this like ultimate leader, and like, and that was just that moment but anyway, it was that awkward silent moment. Team, sorry for hijacking.
No, I think that's a better story than anything I got. But what I would ask both of you guys is, because people tell me this all the time, and I think the fans would love to hear it, is how much does it change for a coach in regards to how players treat him when players know they're in trouble?
Depends on the player
and the coach.
I think some players that are looking for relief in their own situation are hoping that the coach gets fired. Mm-hmm. So he's not there to help. That's where there's a little bit of a divide when you sit here and I look at what you just said about the Vancouver Canucks and the vision of an after the game, the coach just distraught because that he wants to win. He wants to find a solution, and his players are just like, we're done. We're done. There's some players that are going to be like, never going to quit. They're never going to quit on the coach, ever. But there's others that are like, it's time for this guy. Let's just get him out of there so we can all have a fresh start. So you're going to have both sides. I really do believe that.
There were a lot of times in Buffalo, I think, guys were, I think everyone liked and respected Lindy, but I think for the longest time, I think guys were just kind of like, is this going to be the streak that ends it for him? You know what I mean? Like, I thought there was never going to be a day where Lindy Ruff ever got fired out of Buffalo. I wasn't here when it happened, but absolutely, Elliotte. I mean, when there are guys that sit and they're like, man, is coach going to be gone? I mean, I knew I wasn't one of those guys that could say that, but I loved hearing it. It made me feel better about the situation because I didn't feel alone. But yeah, I think guys can get really negative. Guys can get
believe it.
really, really negative, and it really sucks the life out of the player to want to go play. And everyone will say, well, shut up. The guy's got to go play. He's making millions of dollars. It's that easy, but it's not that easy. It's that, you know what I mean by that? Like, it's that easy, but it's not that easy. I don't know that I can explain it, but it's not just shut up and go play, in my opinion.
I think that's totally human nature. You know, Craig, it's interesting what you said, because I'm thinking about, like, some players are like, let's get this guy out of here so we can get a fresh start. Off the top of my head, you know, I was talking about this the other day. So yesterday, actually, last night. So Tampa, Philly yesterday, okay? Philly loses in New York on Wednesday. They have 3 days off. Okay, they have 3 days off. Tampa goes at Minnesota last Sunday, at St. Louis last Tuesday, home against St. Louis on Thursday, at Boston Friday, at Tampa, at Boston Saturday, at Philly Sunday. So a buddy of mine who likes to gamble texts me. He says, you got to get on Philly tonight. I said, this is a schedule loss for Tampa. 5th game in 8 days, travel back to back. And I said, I don't care. I'm not doing it. Like, I just don't like the way Philly's going. And, you know, they lose 7-1. And when a gambler says to you, you got to take this team, and they lose the game 7-1, that's a problem. That's a real problem.
I would never gamble. I would never bet on a team that is having, you know, a season historically that there's a lot of losing. And, you know, we all read, you know, the clips and stuff, and you're listening to the conversation of what the player in the room, whether it's Miller or Myers, or, you know, the older statesmen, the Bo Horvats, the captain, when you start to listen to what they're saying, that's when you know you have a real problem. That's when you know you have a real problem. I don't care if Tampa Bay played 10 games in a row right now, 10 games in a row, and played Philly on the 11th. I'd still pick Tampa Bay, because when you're, or I wouldn't be picking Vancouver, because when teams are struggling, it is very, very, very difficult. And there's a difference between struggling for a couple games, but then if you're struggling for weeks, you know, a couple months, that's when it's like quicksand. It's quicksand. The more you try and get out of it, the harder it just keeps sucking you in. So, you know, these players, I've listened to them speak a lot in the last little while, and they just seem like they're not mentally in the right frame of mind. And for me, that's the most concerning, because your brain takes you everywhere.
I'll ask you this, as my brain's taking me. The bell ticking off there. Is there anything we should know about what's going on your phone, Elliotte?
Yeah. There's a lot going on today. It's busy.
So it's funny. Like, Craig and I were talking before the show, and I was like, so where do you want to go with Elliotte? He goes, this guy's the insider. We got to ask him what's going on. Like, so outside the Philly and Vancouver.
What else is there outside Philly, Vancouver? It's a loony bin out there, man.
Yeah, I know. But what more is there to chase after the actual firings then, if you know that Yo is going to kind of take over? Like, at what point after a trade does the chasing of that story stop? Like, so if you break the news, you know, what's next? Like, who's next, or what the next moves are? Is that what you're trying to dig for?
Yeah. So we know Mike Yo is going to coach tonight against Colorado. We know he's the interim guy. Now it becomes, who's the permanent guy? Who are they calling? Who are they talking to?
Well, could Mike Yo earn that spot?
I don't know. I think it would be hard. It sounds like the relationship between the players and coaching staff there wasn't easy. So I think that's going to be a challenge.
Where's the next firing? You called this last week. I was saying that to Riv before you came on. I was like, Elliotte mentioned Philly last week. He said, keep an eye on what's going on in Philly.
Well, I don't think that's like a great prediction or anything like that. I mean, anyone could have seen that. Okay, let me look at the standings. Where are we at?
Is that what you do? You look at the standings and
well, you asked me, like, where's the next hot spot to watch? I mean, Montreal ended the season. No question about that.
Was there any point this year when the Leafs started the way they did that you thought Sheldon Keefe might have been on the hot spot?
I didn't think he was on the hot spot because I think him and Dubas were kind of tied together. I think Dubas really believes in him, and he did get an extension too. I think Dubas believes in him. So I thought in Toronto this year, unless they were 0-20, they were getting a playoff berth to see if they could break through. I really believe that.
I caught that. I caught that game on Saturday night, the Minnesota game.
Great game.
Love the turtleneck, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That game right there is a classic example of why I hate the shootout.
Should have played another 5 minutes of overtime.
No, it should have ended in a tie.
Well, you know what?
Two of the top teams, the ramifications that were on the line there with being in the lead and all this stuff and, the points, that extra point. Like, I think, you know what? Both teams played well enough to win and walk away with the tie. I don't want to get into that discussion, but for me, that's the definition of a game that should have ended in a tie.
See, I don't mind that. Like, if the fans are going to want to see a shootout, they're paying. Let them see a shootout. You know what I don't like, Andrew? I'm concerned about right now is the way 3-on-3 overtime is starting to get played. 3-on-3 overtime is supposed to be fun, and you guys know what coaches do. They suck the fun out of everything. They're starting to suck the fun out of 3-on-3 overtime, and
in what way? What do you mean?
They're pulling the puck. Like some of the strategy is pulling the puck back so that you can make line changes and things like that, Craig.
Or open up the ice.
Yeah. Now it's getting ridiculous. We're getting.
Well, you're wasting the 5 minutes of overtime. There's only like 45 seconds of excitement, and the rest is just like these guys circling around looking for someone to blow a wheel on the ice or something. But I agree with you, Elliotte. It's all of a sudden where, a couple years ago, I used to love the 3-on-3. It was full bore. It was, we need to score. And now it just seems like I agree. It's lethargic. It's not fast. It's like they've slowed the 3-on-3 down to a snail's pace.
Well, what I would love to see, Craig, is the AHL try a rule where once you have the puck over center, you can't go backwards, like over and back in basketball.
Absolutely. I would say the blue line, Elliotte. I would say the blue line.
The blue line's a little different because you already have an offside rule. I mean, I'm not as punitive and mean as you are, Craig, so I would go with center ice as opposed.
I want to see goals. I want to see
2 weeks
mistakes
in a row.
made.
He's taking a direct swing right at your chin, Riv.
I know. I'm going to tell you right now.
Hey, you know what, Elliotte? You know what I want to know. I want to know if the league called Philly and Vancouver and said we need big news now so that we can hide Connor McDavid's check from behind so that he won't get suspended.
What about Toronto? You see Toronto Winnipeg last night?
A message for those fans: listen, can't boo or cheer when a guy's getting carried off the ice.
Yeah. So I wonder if Pionk's going to hear anything or Spets is going to hear anything.
I didn't see. What are you talking about?
Pionk knee on knee.
Okay, that was yeah.
I think he's seriously hurt too. And then Spezza went after Pionk, clearly headhunting in revenge.
Yes.
Although Pionk did move at the last minute because he saw Spezza coming to kill him, and sometimes that mitigates things. But nasty night.
Well, they play. I know. I saw this. I know that it's amazing. You know what I love? We don't want to see violence in hockey anymore.
Here's when they play next.
When we see games like that, we know they're playing March 21st again. You know what I mean? Like, we already know that Winnipeg's in Toronto on March 21st.
Yep.
Are you looking that up?
Yes. I think it's March 31st, but you're right.
You know what? I said it was March. So what? Is McDavid going to get suspended?
I doubt it. He got thrown out of the game. The Kempe came back and played. I would be shocked if he got suspended.
All right. You know who we're talking to today, Elliotte?
Who's that?
We're talking to him. I don't know when it's going to drop, but we're talking to Ryan Leaf today.
Are you kidding me? That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've heard some of his interviews. He's great.
After he's also doing a podcast now called Bust, and he's 9 years sober. You know, like we had the Sopel interview, and he, you know, Soaps went into rehab for drug and alcohol abuse and all this stuff, and he was super open about it. And he and I talked. I'm almost 10 years sober, and I saw Ryan Leaf had a post about his sobriety and how he woke up on a prison floor like 9 years ago, and here he is now. He's got a little boy. He's working for ESPN college football, and he's rejuvenated his life, and just a fascinating story. And I've seen some of his presentations that he does. He's a public speaker, and it's unbelievable. It's just, you know, for me, he was always kind of the ass end of a joke, and I kind of, you know, I kind of feel like that's unfair. Now you learn all these issues that he's had, right? So
yeah. You know, I think it's always a reminder. Like I always try to think, guys, you never know what someone else is going through, right?
That's right.
You never know, especially now we're in a really tough time in the world. Like I always try to wait another second before making judgment, because you never know what someone is going through.
That's so well said, and I think
that is the nail on the coffin right there. That is, you know, you just don't know what someone else is going through right now. I mean, there's a lot going on in this world.
Even if people aren't open about it or even are ready to admit it to themselves, everyone's dealing with something.
Yes.
Every single person, like myself included, all those years masking certain things with certain things. And it's, you know, it's you know, you're like, no, I'm fine. Everybody's dealing with something. So
everybody's like, I always, like, it's funny. Like I always, one of the lines that me and my buddies have is everybody's got their bullshit, right? And you just never know what somebody's going through.
You never know what day it's going to hit them either.
Yeah.
You know, like some days they can deal with it.
Well done. Yeah.
Trigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing I want to say about up there in Canada, and I don't know if you're close with Bieber or not, but can we talk about these Beeb donuts?
The Timbits? The Beeb bits?
Just for a sec. I love Tim Hortons, okay? I am as loyal as they get. But
what are you talking about?
You haven't seen these?
They're Justin Bieber designed and made Timbits.
And they look unbelievable. The flavors that this guy, I mean, he had to have smoked 15 joints before and got the munchies before he went in there and started creating these flavors. There's no question.
So there's multiple flavors of Timbits.
They're called Beeb Bits. Beeb Bits.
Have you tried them?
I have not.
My wife tried them. She wasn't huge in them, but I love the idea.
Okay, what's your favorite Timbit before we let you go?
Oh, I like the chocolate ones.
Can I tell you one more?
Chocolate glazed.
Ellie, can I tell you one more?
You're not going to ask me which one I like?
We don't care.
Yeah, seriously.
Sour cream glazed.
I like them all. Like every single one of them except for the plain one.
Oh. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Elliot, I gotta tell you.
It's like eating cardboard.
I gotta tell you. What'd you say?
It's like eating cardboard.
I gotta tell you a quick Craig story before you go. So, do you remember the day the Eichel trade broke? Obviously you do.
Yep.
So listen to this, because you know our old boss.
I hate when you tell stories about me.
So you'll appreciate this, Elliot, because it's so harmless and innocent. You know our old boss. So I tweet out at like 7:15 in the morning that Jack gets traded, okay?
Yeah.
Craig doesn't know. Like, I text Craig that Jack's been traded, but he doesn't know that I broke the story, okay? He doesn't know that I tweeted it out there. So he texts our old boss who works for the Sabres after we break the news and start our own show.
We didn't break the news. We didn't break the news.
Sorry, when I
broke the news.
Oh, yeah. But when I was getting credit for it, you were saying we. See how this works, Elliot? So
yes.
So anyway, so at 8:30, because Craig doesn't know that I broke the story, he just messages a friendly text to our old boss. It's a new era in Buffalo or something like that.
It was totally innocent, totally innocent. I
Meanwhile,
text with this guy for the last 5
not only
years.
did we leave and start our own podcast, we're breaking your news too. But really, what Craig was saying was like, "Hey, it's a whole new era in Buffalo."
Fresh new start for Buffalo. But
and he goes and
thanks for telling me that, Petey.
He texts our old boss. Anyway, maybe you don't find that as amusing.
Great story.
I do. I think. But wait a second. What's your relationship like?
Fine.
Great.
Oh, it's fine.
It's great.
Oh yeah,
Then what's the problem? I think it's great.
Yeah. Okay. I was just telling Craig, I'm like, you understand how misconstrued that could be.
Oh, you know what? Like, people got to learn to, like, I got a really thick skin. Like, it takes a lot to really bother me. I think we all need to learn to laugh a little bit more, don't you?
And that's why I'm laughing at the story, because Craig's like, Jesus, are you serious? My God.
Yeah, like
I had no idea. I had no idea.
It sound like I was like rubbing it in his face or something, and I was like, no, like it was. I just like, like. Anyway, not a big deal.
Last thing, Sabres doing anything coming up at all? Are they going to be looking for another goalie?
Jeff mentioned on Saturday night that Dallas asked him about Khudobin, and now there's just a report I just saw that Ben Bishop's going to do a conditioning stint, which I am pleasantly surprised to see. I don't know, like what it says to me is that the Sabres are they want to keep their flexibility, right? And we all know that they want the best pick available. So I don't know. Is there an update on Subban? How badly he got? Like, he was really excited to go there. Somebody who knows him told me he was really happy to get the opportunity. So I hope it's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, it was a tough start for him. And the one thing I'll say is I don't want him to be judged on his first start. What a tough scenario to be tossed into a game, traded from the minors, uproot your life.
But again, when we were sitting there talking about a goaltender that the Sabres are interested in, were we thinking PK or Malcolm Subban?
You know what? I have.
I mean, he's playing in the minors.
Initially, like, I went through everybody, like, and so Subban's name came up, and I just didn't know if they would do that because I had heard they were trying to get someone who was better than what they had, and Subban was kind of on the same level, right? So I discarded it. Maybe I should have taken it more seriously. But like I said, like, I heard that when he was told, he was really excited. He was like, all right, I'm going to play. So you hate to see that.
It's what every guy wants, is just a chance or another chance, right, Elliotte? We appreciate you giving us a chance.
Sorry, guys. It's a crazy day here today. So, like, who knows what's going on.
Those are the best days, though, when there's
Get to work, Elliotte.
Yeah.
Get to work.
Yeah, we appreciate you stepping aside.
Greg, you sound like my bosses. Stop screwing around. Get to work.
Exactly.
It's amazing. I feel like Craig and I are 50-50 here, but he refers to himself as the boss as well. I think it's just how it's not even keel.
It's never been said, but we both know that.
See you, Elliotte. Thanks, man.
Hey, guys, take care. See you later. Bye-bye.
Are we done here?
Fuck you.
That's that'll do it for episode 19. Because, yeah, look at this grumpy bear over there. Tune into the YouTube channel if you're listening on just to the last couple minutes of the grumpy bear over there. Looks like we're leaving this on too. I'm not taking this off. I literally talk to you for 2 minutes, tell you something, and you don't even respond. Craig, are you listening?
No.
That's a wrap on another episode of After the Whistle. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, After the Whistle, and at Craig Rivet 52, at the Instigator 76. And you can find us, as you already know, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else where you can get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the word.